All right. This is one of the other interviews in our new series that I've just recently started. I don't know how many up until this point because I didn't think of that. How many I've done, probably five or six before this. And I really want to thank Cristobal to join us today to share his experience around, well, why did he go into coaching? Well, why would somebody even consider coaching and what did he gain out of it? And how did it support him to move forward? And what are the amazing things that Cristobal is doing in his life? So we're going to hear more about his experience around why he went into coaching, what happened in the process, what did he gain out of it, and what is he doing as a leader as he's moving on, as he's moving forward. I'm really excited to hear his take on this. None of this is prepared, by the way, so Cristobal doesn't know what I'm going to ask. I don't know what I'm going to ask, to be honest. We're just going to jump into a raw conversation and really go into it. Maybe we'll start with this. Maybe Cristobal, you can share a little bit about yourself, and then also after you share a little bit about yourself, you can share how did you even consider going into coaching and how did you get introduced to it and what made you be curious about the process?
Absolutely. So I think as part of my intro, I can just merge all those questions into a simple answer or just one answer. And so everything started like I'm an immigrant into the US. And as soon as I landed in California a few years back, then I started suffering from a cultural shock. And that actually created a shell for me. And so I stayed within my shell for a lot of years. And when I decided to come out of this shell, it was a lot of stress. And I didn't know how to handle that. I became really distressed on the family side, on the personal side, on the business side, on my job, everything. I didn't know how to handle that. And coaching helped me pretty much like create buckets or compartments for each of my session, the categories in my life that are critical for me, and then just address them one at a time.
Awesome. And I know that you went through coaching even before you went through the coaching process with me. Is that accurate?
Yes. So I've been doing one-on-one coaching since 2016. I started with Tony Robbins, and then I did 2 years with Tony Robbins personal coaches, and then I joined other masterminds that offer personal coachings. And throughout the years, as I have grown different interests and businesses, most related to real estate, that's and eventually how I landed with you as my coach, mentor.
It's interesting what you shared around the cultural shock, because I think that was a connecting point for us because I had gone through that cultural shock. And unfortunately, I didn't go through a coaching process when I was much younger when I came in. And I didn't even know if there was anything like coaching or anything like this at all. I was seeking for answers in my own environment. And that's one of the things I always share with my clients. Is one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about this is that I wish I had access to a process like this in my early 20s. It would have been so much worth it for me to go through this for a few months than to go through years of pain trying to figure out how to orient myself in a completely new world. For me, just it was a huge cultural shock. But even if we take the cultural shock out of it, like people go through transitions. And whenever we go through these transitions, whether that's moving into a new culture or starting a new job or starting a new business, or being in a relationship or becoming a parent or going through the parenting process or starting to date or starting to get into a relationship, whatever that might be, these transitions are actually fairly difficult for people to handle. And for the most part, we assume that we'll figure it out as you go. And we do, but it takes quite a bit of time. And that time can be like shrunk. That growth journey can be shrunk extensively as you go through the coaching journey. And that's been my experience later on as I got coaching. And I love that you shared that because that's important for people to notice, like what is a transition that you're going through in your life that you might need support in. So you shared that you've gotten coaching in so many different areas. I'm curious though, because I don't know this part. How did you even consider thinking about coaching? Because a lot of people will, like when they're struggling with the stuff, they will listen to podcasts, they will read books. How did you go towards Tony Robbins coaching or whatever coaching you went to?
Yeah, so this is what happened. I became a dad. And I decided to create a new business. And at the same time, I just got in debt paying for educational stuff, like over $80,000 overnight in credit cards. So I had $80,000 in credit card debt, a brand new baby, all my household expenses, my job, and then this new business that I'm trying to launch. And then when I'm meeting with my coach, they're telling me, oh, by the way, you need to spend more money on marketing if you want to launch this business. And so I didn't see an exit. I was just literally drowning. And then when this individual realized that I was not making any progress, I told her, listen, I just want to quit and I just want to figure out a way to pay all this debt, like shut down this business and just move on with my life. She told me, hey, like hold your horses right now. And then she recommended me a book. And that book was Fixed Mindset versus Growth Mindset from Carol Dweck. And that was my introduction to personal development. And eventually, through this individual, she also introduced me to Tony Robbins. I didn't even know who he was. That's how ignorant I was in the personal development world. And then when I got into my one-on-one session or consultation, the answer was like, oh, my natural answer was, I already have $80,000 in debt and I have to keep all this payments for my household, plus the new expenses from the new baby and run the business. And also, by the way, with a single income, right? And then I told the guy, hey, listen, I'm able to afford, I remember it was like $3,000 or so. I told him, I can't afford $3,000 right now. And then the answer was, you don't have the privilege to say you can afford based on your personal situation. So if you invest in you, then things are going to change. I spoke with my wife and I apologized to her initially because I got us into that situation. I told her, listen, I truly believe I really need this and I need your support. I know I'm going to get us deeper into debt right now by investing on this coaching program, but I promise you it's going to pay off. And as soon as I joined that program, and it was challenging just to peel off the onion, right? All the stuff that you did incorrectly. But then I can say that after I joined that, 2 years later, I pay off my debt. I learn more about business. Of course, I have to shut down some of the business ventures that I started to develop, but then I created new business ventures and that led me into a different path completely. That if I haven't had a coach or approach to a personal development, I wouldn't be able to do that. Like my natural reaction would have been to quit just to alleviate that pain, right? It's like, I just don't want to deal with this anymore. It's too painful, quit and move on with my job. And that would have been the rest of my life.
Yeah, yeah, that's incredible because I mean, most people when they consider 80,000 in debt and they have a kid who is newborn and you're the single family, and I've gone through that process myself, so I know how stressful that can be, how difficult. And I love what you said is that for most people, it's like you just want to alleviate that pain, like you want to shut down everything. And this is actually why a lot of businesses shut down. Because it becomes too unpredictable for people. And to go through a coaching process and then within 2 years you pay that off and start new business ventures and get more focused on what you need to do, that is a incredible journey, because that could either one of two things happens. Either somebody quits completely and they slowly pay off the debt and they go in their comfort area. It might take them a few years to pay off the debt, but now they're, because they got scared, they went back in their shell and created. But for you, the opposite happened. Not only did you pay off the debt, but now you're going into better ventures. You're understanding how you can approach business in a better way. Would you say that's what happened, is that you expanded instead of shrinking back?
Yes. And I started taking a little risk. So I know that traditionally in my culture, which is Mexican, right? I was born in Mexico. So my wife and I are from Mexico. And then your house is the most important piece of your family that you can have, right? That's where all the beauty happens. And then some of the decisions that we had to make was sell our home. And then that was a difficult decision to make. Like that happened over 10 years ago now. But then when I reflect on that decision, even though it was my dream house, if you will, but then I was not attached to that place. And because of that, disposing of that asset gave me the opportunity to grow 10 times more.
Yeah, I love that. That's such a powerful distinction, because most people look at their house as an investment. In reality, that's not the case. It's probably more of a liability for them, but you leveraged whatever you had out of that to grow 10 times more in so many other areas. And what we're referring to here is if you haven't gone through the process, you don't realize there's a reason why I invest so much in coaching and development for myself, professional and personal development, because I personally believe that regardless of all the other investments you have externally, that the biggest investment is in yourself, because your own skill sets, your own character, your own habits, the way you approach your life, your ability to lead, your ability to share your vision, your ability to connect with your family, with your team, those are the things that make up your life. And very few people actually invest in those areas. And as soon as you do, it starts to amplify everything else in your life. That's the reason why personally I invest in coaching. And I've seen a lot of my clients because they see 10x the growth that they would otherwise. And unless you've gone through the process, you wouldn't even consider it that way. What are your thoughts about that, Chris?
I agree with your statement. And for me, it was also, I realized that when I read that book, I realized that I had a fixed mindset.
Yeah.
And so to me, it's like, how do I change my fixed mindset into a growth mindset? And I also realized that I wouldn't be able to do that alone, and I needed support. And I needed support from like a neutral party that could tell me the honest truth. And then I just needed to swallow that piece. And that to me, that was the power of coaching.
Yeah, I love that. And we'll go deeper into what that looks like, but I am curious. So what was the difference for you from fixed mindset to growth? Like what shifted? Like what was the shift that happened?
The shift would happen. I changed the way I think about things of becoming like an everlasting student instead of being the expert. I always consider myself a student and be open, like have a blank notepad, right? It's like I'm not the expert on any topic and I don't want to be the expert on any of the topics. I rather reached out to people that specialize on stuff to complement the knowledge that I want to have instead of me going after a specific piece of knowledge. And before that, it's like, oh, I need to be the expert on everything. I need to do this, and that. And I just realized it's not scalable.
Yeah, and I love that because you're on a path to building businesses. And one of the things you learn is that usually when you're in business, other people around you are much more competent in a lot of the areas that they're doing. Like without my business partners, without my social media manager, all these people who are much more competent at what they do, I wouldn't be able to run a lot of the things that I do. And I love that. And that's a much more scalable model because you're leveraging those around you. I think there's a story of Ford. I think he was in a court case or something. If I remember it, the lawyer was putting him down. It's like, you're uneducated. You don't have this. And he was going on and he's like, you're right. I have all these people that are much smarter than me that are running everything.
Yes, I just need to push a button.
Like that's what makes me have all this stuff is because I'm connecting with people. And that's what it is to build an organization around you. By the way, we do the same thing in our families, in our homes as well, is that we ideally want people who are growing and we want to empower people around us rather than make them be dependent on us for some ego reason. So I want to jump in now. So let's fast forward this. And this is really cool that you've gone through a coaching process because you can give a view because a lot of people haven't even gone through coaching at all, but you've gone through different types of coaching. So you're in a really good position to share like what the difference might be. So I know that fast forward when you came into the coaching program, it was through Michael Blanc's program that we have a contract with through one of my companies. And I know you came into the group coaching program. And then after that, you did one-on-one coaching with me. So help us kind of like what made you want to jump into the group that we started and what did you gain out of that? And then what made you want to do one-on-one coaching with me?
I think for me, anything that's personal growth related, I'm always curious about. And so even though that group was not related to multifamily real estate, it was mostly about the mindset. And that really got my attention because most of the stuff that we have to go through, it's mostly mindset. And then those limiting beliefs that we all have. And as we were going through the group sessions and going through the exercises, some of the questions that I started to ask myself was about purpose, about clarity, about, in essence, like am I doing the right thing, or am I going into a different path where there's no return? And at that point, I just needed a little bit more than the group coaching, right? I wanted to go deeper. And then when you are in a group session, I didn't want to jeopardize the session with all my questions and all my stuff, right? And so that's when I said, well, that's when I'm going to need this one-on-one just to see where that will take me.
Okay, that makes sense. And so then what I hear there is that the group helped you understand that, hey, these are the areas that I need to have develop more clarity around, and I need to think a little bit about my purpose. So it created more questions for you to explore that you might have not had the opportunity to explore it in a deeper way in a group, even though there is a lot of perspective and insight that you get in those sessions. But then that made you become more curious about, okay, I need more of a personal space for me to explore these. Then that made you go towards doing the session. Now, at this point, you had already gone through coaching before. And just for those who are listening for context, so this is part of a bigger program, multifamily investing program that Michael Blanc offers. And one of the branches of that we started with my company was the mindset coaching piece of it. And that's where Cristobal came into that part of the coaching. And then eventually that led to one-on-one. So what made you want to sign up to one-on-one? What did you notice that was different about the coaching that I was offering versus what you were getting in the past? Or was it the same?
So I think we discussed this in a few of our sessions, right? So mostly for me was about purpose. Like that was some of my questions that I've been asking other coaches in the past. Like, hey, how do I discover my purpose? How do I do this? And then the answers were really vague. And so even though we went through exercises and stuff, I didn't believe, or I didn't feel that was the purpose I was going after, or the purpose of my life in that point in time. And so was after we have a few of the like that our discovery session, right? And then eventually into our first one-on-one sessions, those were some of the first items we were addressing. And so for that point, we had to carve out some of the past, right? We had to go deep. It's like, okay, so this is also something that's holding you back. And so now this is really what's going on, and this is what you need to do. And so those aha moments I didn't have before.
Okay, so then what I hear there is a lot of the reason why you were attracted to the one-on-one coaching was because it helped you go more towards unpeeling the layers of what was happening inside for you to discover what purpose meant to you, which was vague in the past, but you felt like it was getting clearer as we were having those conversations. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, so then you jumped into the coaching process and you were a little bit more familiar than most people were. So you knew generally what to expect. So now, just to clarify for others, in your view, like, do I go in there and tell you what to do with your purpose, or I define your purpose for you? Like, how does that process go for those who are listening?
So the process was like this session, right? It was listening and then asking very quick questions based on that specific conversation that was triggering thoughts or memories that maybe I didn't know that they were, or the feelings that that were creating that were making me make some decisions versus others. And I thought that was most of the power, right? It's like your listening ability, and suddenly just like, hey, let me see if I hear that correctly, or let me ask you this, or let me say that, or will you say this, and what about this? And so those questions that you were developing during our conversation, that was really the powerful moments during our sessions.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing that. And basically, what Cristobal is sharing is the essence of coaching is about 80 to 90% of it is questions that a coach asks based on the presence, awareness, and the context of what the client is sharing. And the purpose of the question is to actually get the client to develop more of an awareness of their own life. So in a sense, a good analogy I want to give around this is that the way a coach ideally works is that you're walking me through your life, and I'm another set of eyes and mind, and I'm watching your life from my perspective, but also from your lens. And there are things that I'm noticing that you notice. There are things that you might not be noticing. There are things that you're vague about, and I'm asking deeper questions for you to get clarity around. So in a sense, you start out with a little bit of light around you in your life. And as we ask questions, we go into the darker areas of your life that there was no light, and we start to explore and you start to see, holy shoot, I didn't even know this part existed. And we kind of go on this journey together to find out what's happening as we go through it. I don't know why I'm asking those questions. I'm curious. Like, you shared this, but it doesn't connect very well here. Help me understand this. And as we go through it, things become clear about your life, whether that's related to your relationship, your purpose, your path forward, your business. And the light starts to illuminate, and now you know what to do as you move forward. That's why one of the things people might think indication of difference between mentoring and coaching is that in coaching, I'm getting you to come up with what matters to you and what is real in your life based on the answers that you already know. It's just that it's hidden under the awareness. It's in the subconscious a lot of times until it gets triggered by a question. And then you start to notice possibilities and solutions and ways of approaching things that you never thought of before. Would you say that that's close to your experience of what happened?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank for sharing that. Now I want to go into the like some specific areas. So it started with purpose. Now, what else? I mean, what else did coaching do for you as you went through the process? 'Cause I know we didn't just explore that area. We started connecting that with your family, with
Yeah,
your business,
exactly.
with your faith. So what happened? Like, what were the tangible differences that you start to see in different parts?
Yes. So as part of that, then that became like the pillar of family became really critical. Also, the pillar of my faith became also another very critical pillar for me. And then the business aspect. And we were able to discuss what was important to me at that time and then just go deep based on my relationship with my wife or the relationship with my children and how to become that father figure that's going to be supportive of them instead of like I would say a different type of partnership. Yeah, become like a different type of a dad. And then eventually on the spiritual side, like be open for that spirituality, right? Like sometimes what I've seen is people that even are spiritual, they it's like, oh, this is just my bucket of spirituality. But then in essence, if you are deep into your faith, that's really who you are. And then there's you shouldn't stop showing your spirituality on business or on the family side or with your friends or with your community just because maybe you're afraid of people to say something about this stuff that maybe you don't want to hear. But then to me, that became really critical in my life, which that's my new journey right now. I just joined a spiritual mastermind because that's what I need in this point of my life. So as part of my continuous growth, that's where I wanted to be. So literally last week, I just joined a business oriented mastermind that's all about spirituality,
That's
surrounding my
powerful.
faith.
That's amazing. And what I heard there is that you became more open to not only connect with your spiritual side, and you didn't leave it in a compartmentalized bucket in some part of your life, but it's everything that you are. It's who you are. It's your values. It's who you are at your core. Now you're becoming more open to expressing that and exploring that in different parts of your life. Would you say that's accurate?
Yes, and that was very difficult for me to do, right? Because like some of the hot topics sometimes is religion, right? And it's like, oh, how do I show my values to people, which is in essence like also who I am. And that's been leading me to find potential business partnerships, right? With like-minded people that we have our commonality comes is our spiritual life. And then from there are also other business leaders. And then so now we're joining forces to create new business ventures.
Yeah, I love that you're sharing this. By the way, this is one of the most powerful aspects of marketing and sales is people don't realize this and they don't connect this. Most people out in the world, first of all, we're all kind of scared to share who we are one way or another to one degree or another because there is a sense that we might be judged or we might be ridiculed or there might be pushback, especially when you go out in the world, in the Western world there's a lot of pushback around religion, faith, and values that people might share, or they might be open. So people are normally scared to share that, but now it's much more amplified with social media and what's happening out in the bigger culture. And so for you to become, as soon as you become open, though, like the opposite side, as soon as you become open and you become more direct and more expressive about what matters to you, what your values are, what your vision is, it tends to attract the right people. And this is how it connects to marketing. Some of the best people who know how to market themselves out in the world And that's the initial point of a business. Because if you don't know how to market yourself, there is no business, there is no sales. Is that they're able to share their values, they're able to share what matters to them. So it attracts the right people towards them and it deflects the wrong people. Most people, when they go into business, they get an amalgamation of those. So they attract the wrong people towards them, which means that their values don't align, their vision don't align. The only thing that aligns is their skill sets. That is not enough, because that tends to break down as we start to deal with problems. Then the finger pointing starts to happen, the partnerships don't work. And then
Right.
I'm sure you've seen versions of that. And now you're going on this path where you're connecting with the right people. That's creating a shortcut for you to kind of go faster on your business path. Would you say that that's what's happening, or is it a different experience?
No, I truly believe that's what's happening right now. This openness, it's helping me repel the people that I don't want to attract, or the people that I want to talk to me in an essence, right? Which is the people I don't want to talk to anyways. And it's helping me attract the people that I want to be in touch with. And that's creating also a community, right? Because I'm not alone on this journey. And so when you find those groups of individuals, then that become a community that will support you one way or another.
Yeah, and I love that component, because a lot of the times people might have this understanding that, oh, they're going to do everything on their own. Well, there's actually nothing we do on our own. Even if you're not running a business, even if you're just doing a job and you're at your home, you're still dealing with people. You're still connecting with your family. You're still dealing with your coworkers and boss and everything. But as soon as you go in business, it becomes more and more imperative that you know how to connect with people. And one of the things that Robert Kiyosaki always says, that like school taught us the opposite of what we were supposed to do. It's so counterintuitive. It's like they stopped us from cheating, and cheating is basically cooperating with others. They called it cheating, but out in the real world, you need to learn to cooperate with people or you do not have a business. But in classroom, if you try to cooperate, you're going to get punished for that thing. So, and the other side of it is that out in the real world, you need to learn to fail and learn from that. That is an essential part of growth. But out in school, you could not fail. You needed to get better results. If you fail,
Yes.
that would be reprimanded. That would have negative consequences. And so that, like the model with which we have grown up in the normal circles, that does not work when you're trying to scale and grow and have a more free life, more connected life, to take more risks. Almost everything requires risk. That does not work. And what you're describing is it's connecting you to that mindset, but also to the people who are open to that will help you amplify that, which is so powerful, but most people have no access to that. And it's getting me excited because I didn't have access to any of that stuff. And it's so odd when I'm in this world where I'm partnering up with people, collaborating with people, versus in a time where I was like, how do I figure this out on my own? And I'm scared.
Yes.
So that's one, that purpose and openness is one side. What do you think has been, you don't need to share personal stuff around it, but what do you think has been the impact of the coaching on your relationships? Because I know there is a sense of courage as well to move forward in a direction. There's a sense of orientation and alignment. So what has been the real tangible impacts in your relationship and your own growth and how you carry yourself, but also in your movement in your business? Like what are the real impacts for you from coaching?
Well, I would say, like I told you right now, a few months ago, the impact that I've been having right now, I've been approached by other people to create potential partnerships where in the past that would have been like almost impossible, right? It's like we start going, I'm also being invited to these rooms of other entrepreneurs. And that's where I start seeing some of the magic happen, right? Even though I might be the smaller guy in the room, but then as we start talking, it's like, oh, let's go out for lunch or let's do this and let me get your number so we can stay in touch. And so now as we start doing those follow-ups, then all these opportunities are mostly showing up. And that's something that I didn't have before because I was in a shell. I was within my shell that I didn't want to show anything out to the world because when I did in the past, I got hurt. And so that pain was preventing me from pursuing new opportunities.
And so what I hear there is that you've developed more courage and openness in the process. But also underneath that, I also hear that you have become better at managing your own thoughts and emotions in the background. And I know we did quite a bit of work there. Tell us a little bit about that. Like, how was that stopping you? And if it was stopping you in any way to move forward, like managing your own thoughts and emotions in the turbulence that pretty much everybody feels.
Right. So I think it was the emotions, right? So you attach emotions to all your potential problems, and then you develop this horror movies in your brain, and then you go that negativity rabbit hole, right? It's like you start thinking like, oh, and this gonna happen, and then this, and then at that point, you are not even able to make the right decision because you're only thinking about the worst case scenario. But then once you realize, oh, I'm feeling this anxiety, or I'm feeling whatever right now, let's pause, let's take a moment, breathe, do whatever works for you, and realize like, I would say 99% of the time, you're not even able to control most of the stuff that you are anxious about or that you're stressed about. And so when you take that pause to recompose yourself, then realize, oh, okay, so I can only do this much because I can only control what I do and how I execute. But then the performance on other people, I really don't control what they do. So once I understood that piece, and then through the sessions that we were having about, oh, I feel in these emotions, and then labeling them and doing this, then recognizing them later on is easier. And it's like, oh, okay, stop. And then you have to stop and do this and then just go back, right? To me, I was also going to food. It's like when I was feeling like, I don't know, anxious or stressed, then my reaction was towards food. And so I had to stop that.
Yeah. So what I hear there is that your coping mechanism was to get more food to deal with the anxiety and stress versus having better tools to deal with it. And this is something for people to understand. So it's very simple and common sense to say, pause, take a breath, and do this. Everybody knows this, but most people don't do it. But part of the coaching process is, at least in my kind of coaching, is to get you to go through that process of experiencing the emotions and working through them. So you know experientially what's happening. So next time it comes up, you're able to deal with it in a better way. And one of the things I've learned, so for example, in the past, I used to use alcohol, I used to use drugs, I used to use all sorts of stuff to deal with my own stressors and anxieties and fears. And this is a challenge I've always had with the religious world, is that in religion, they will tell you, don't smoke, don't drink, don't do this, but they don't give you the tools. Nobody wants to do that stuff because afterwards we know the effects of it. But then what the hell do I do? And it's like something in the middle has been lost, because in the past, when the prescription was given, the tools were there too. And as kind of civilization has grown, a lot of the people who were trained to help people work through this stuff, the rites of initiation, that has disappeared. And this is the product of industrial age. Some of the things were lost, and now we're learning to readapt some of those things. Okay, I know that it's not right for me to be drunk all the time. How do I, why am I being drunk to begin with? How can I find better tools? And as you start to do that, you don't need any of that. Pretty much everything you need is inside of yourself, and you have much better tools to deal with things. And that's what part of the coaching process is, helping you develop better tools experientially to deal with stressors, to deal with fear, to develop more courage, to become much more open, much more inquisitive, curious, which are all the traits that some of the top highest performers of the world tend to say. And they've developed it in their own way, or through coaching, or through their experience. Now we're trying to replicate that in the coaching process, which works very powerfully. Of course, the other side has to implement it too. Now, I'm also curious, because you've invested quite a bit in yourself, and I'd say, like, at least by the number that you're saying, it's going well over 100K.
Yeah.
And we're not talking about real estate investments. We're not
No.
talking about all sorts of other. So, would you say that that's been worth it? Has it given you the ROI?
Yeah, well, I'm gonna show you this. My wife gave me this, like we're fixing my office right now, so she gave me this. These are all the badges from all the conferences I've been attending in the last couple of years. And then most of these conferences had led into one-on-one coaching, right? And so with all that knowledge that I've been gaining throughout the years, I'm starting to scratch the surface of the benefits of it, right? It was not an immediate payoff for me. Like I didn't see an immediate ROI. But then now, after years and years and years, of like being persistent. Now, when I was seeing like something that a weakness, it's like, oh, let me try to pursue some type of coaching in this or this and that in different aspects of my life. And so that coaching and then that guidance that I received from coaching, it's starting to pay off.
Yeah. And so there are different types of ROIs. For example, one of my friends who's a coach, initially when I jumped into this world 7 years ago, he asked me, like, I put in, like, start with a 10K investment in this process. And then over time, I think mine is well over close to 150 to 200K. I'm in the coaching world and all this things that I'm developing. And I'm consistently getting coaching. But he asked me this question. It was interesting. He's a coach as well. He's like, was that initial investment worth it? And I really thought about it. I'm like, you know what? And I thought about it in two ways. One, I thought about it, okay, what did it do for me? And what was like the financial ROI out of it? And if I were, I just calculated the financial ROI of that initial one was 50 times more. That was, for me, it was incredible. I'm like, okay. And it just hit me in that one. But also, even more than that, the person that I've become, the way I've grown, the way that I connect with people, how I look at myself, how I feel my life, how I experience my life, the level of depth, connection, and on the spiritual side, on the personal side, on the emotional side, on the relationship level, there is no way in the short few years I would have gone that without coaching, without a process of that personal development that I've gone through. And also, I've watched people go through their whole life, they don't get that. Forget about, like, it's not like it's given that, oh, if you don't get coaching in 10 years, you'll figure it out on your own. That is not what happens. There are people who will go through their whole life. They will get to the end of their life. They haven't learned anything. So we assume that with age, you get growth. Not psychological, not emotional, not spiritual. Those are choices we all have to make. And there are tools that will help you go towards that. For some people, it starts with therapy. Some people, mentorship. For some people, it's masterminds. And for me, it's become a mix of all. It's been a mix of counseling, masterminds, coaching. But coaching for me has a high place because it's a forward-pacing modality. So it helps you develop tools, strengths, abilities, awareness to help you move forward in all parts of your life. Has that been your experience, or have you looked at it a little bit different?
No, yeah, that's been my experience too. And yeah, I haven't quantified potential ROIs, but then what I know for sure is that I wouldn't be in the position that I am right now if it wasn't for coaching.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for sharing that. And so if there is a new investor or an entrepreneur or an experienced one, what would you say to them if they haven't experienced coaching or if they haven't gone through it? What would you tell them?
There's always opportunity for growth and then to learn more. We just need to be humble enough to be open for that. And that also requires an investment, but it's an investment in yourself. And then if you are willing to put the work from the coaching that you're going to receive, you are definitely going to see a change, mostly in yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And just a couple of last shares. I want to share a little bit, then I'll get Cristobal to share how you guys can connect with him. Because if you're an investor and entrepreneur, you're on that path. I know Cristobal brings a lot to the table. So definitely connect with them, because especially if you connect with his values and ideals around growth, and if you are on that growth mindset journey, if you are on a path to scaling and developing your business and investing journey, then definitely connect with Cristobal, and I'll get him to share that. Now, a lot of the times you might be anxious about, well, okay, how do I jump into this stuff? Most coaches will offer a bonus consulting or strategy or discovery call to help you experience it. At least those who are really good, who understand that you need to experience it for you to be able to understand what the investment value is. And it's not enough for you to hear it like this. This will kind of give you a view of it. But one of the best ways to know whether or not it's the right path for you, to jump in and find a coach and do a session. For me, part of this helps my business, but part of this, I'm normalizing this for the industry, because I have another business where we're helping develop the industry more, and the industry is still in the initial stages of it, and a lot of coaches are struggling to connect with clients. So really go find a coach and go through an experience of it. Go through multiple experiences of coaching with different coaches. See what fits right for you. And if you feel like you want to go through that experience with me, you can reach out to me, whether you see this on my social media or my website or my YouTube or podcast, wherever. Reach out to me. I'm sure you'll find the contact info. can't find it, just Google me, Faisal Ensaun. You will find me. I'm very reachable on social media. And also, I want to give Cristobal an opportunity to kind of share a little bit about what are you trying to do out in the world, and who would you ideally want to partner with, connect with, and then share how people can find you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Faisal, for that. So right now, what I'm currently focusing on, it's everything's related around real estate, right? So right now, my business ventures with partners for the first time or for the third time now, but then I believe this will be great partnerships are still around real estate, single like on the residential side, on the commercial side, and then there's an opportunity potentially for new development. We're going to start, of course, small and then a scale, but then something that's been critical for me that for years I wanted to do, and I really never knew how to accomplish this, was how to bring investors from other countries to deploy their money in the US real estate market. And so now I'm finding that people, right, that have those knowledge, like we need to do this. Or so I'm finding people that have done it before and they're open for partnerships to literally bring money from Latin American countries and then start deploying that in real estate to get gains. And that's really where most of my efforts are at this point in time.
That's incredible. I love that. And that's a very unique effort around that, because real estate investors are always looking for capital. And it's not, especially in the market right now, it might not be always easy to find that. And they have a unique opportunity for you to connect them with the Latin America world. And I know you do some of your content creation in Spanish.
Yeah.
Are you still doing that?
I'm still doing that. Yes. I want to support the Spanish speaking community, that even though we are bilinguals, but then there's nothing like your native tongue. Sometimes to have essential conversations for you, there's nothing like speaking on your native tongue. And that's really where I'm also focusing on Spanish speaking content and the Spanish speaking business ventures. So which has been it's been phenomenal so far.
Yeah, and then that's a huge untapped market, especially if you're in the US, that unless somebody's, and there's something interesting about language is that because you don't just speak the language, you're connecting with them at the cultural level that a lot of investors from this side might not be able to do. But because you understand the culture, understand how to connect with them, communicate with them, understand how to approach it, you're in a much better position to help them make those decisions to invest in these deals versus somebody who's a native, for example, in US or Canada or somewhere like that. So I love that you're doing that and you're putting yourself out there and being open. And I really want to celebrate and honor you, Cristobal, because I've watched your journey towards growth and just the openness you've had to and the courage you've had to deal with these things, to show up as a better father, as a better husband, as a better leader, as a better business owner. I think we need more and more of that, and the self-awareness that you bring out in the world. I'm really excited for you to go out there, and I know you're already doing that. Share it out in the world and start building amazing things in the process. So happy to see you growing in that area. And where can people find you, Cristobal?
Yeah, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. So if you want to reach out on LinkedIn, my profile is my full name, Cristobal Jimenez Priego, or I'm starting to develop like a Twitter feed, and my handle is at CJ Priego, which is my first two initials and then my last name, Priego. And then you can follow me there, or you can reach me out there. Send me a direct message on LinkedIn or Twitter, and then we can connect that way.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, and definitely connect with Cristobal, because you will gain a connection that's rare to find out in the world. And I don't just mean here, but literally out in the world, because it's actually very rare to find people who are on this kind of journey. Very few people take the kind of risks that Cristobal does. Very few people grow at the level that Cristobal does. And it becomes important to, even if you're curious, hey, let me find out what he's up to, definitely connect with him, because it'll help you in one way or another. And also definitely share this, whether you're listening to this on my podcast, on my YouTube channel, or any of the other social media channels. Share this with anybody that you think who's thinking about coaching, or you think they might need something like this, because this might be the video that will help them get the support that they need. And ultimately, my purpose is to help people find the support that they need. It doesn't have to be from me, but a lot of times when people get the support that they need, they accelerate on their path. And so definitely share this, like this. Let's get the message out so we can help more people. And aside from that, we'll see you in the next conversation. And Cristobal, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Faisal. A pleasure.
All right. Bye. You're welcome.